Hey Kate. Right, so here it is, your run analysis, courtesy of Melanie Hayes and Kate Offord of Spirit of Sport. Interesting looking at your running, because obviously you had your toe operation nearly a year ago now actually. And I hadn't got my notes with me as to what foot it was. I thought it would be really interesting to see what it looks like. And thankfully I guessed right, because you've just texted me back to say that yes, it was your left foot. But actually, kind of at a top view, it's quite hard to tell which foot is which. So there's a lot of positives there. So let's have a little look at your running. So we've slowed it down to about 25%. So what you can see is you are fairly flat-footed, I would say, and there is a quite obvious sort of heel strike there. Now, in terms of kind of running, we tend to worry about heel strikes, and actually something that Mel and I are big believers in is that we don't need to correct a heel strike, because you can do more harm than good. But where a heel strike becomes problematic is where there's some sort of overstriding involved, which basically means that you're not landing with the foot under the body, you're landing in front of the quite far in front of the body, which basically means that you're putting the brakes on and you're putting a lot of force through the heel. And that is a little bit what we see with you. So if we have a little look through, and we slow it down. So as you come past us, we see that the leg comes through, and here we see that heel strike, and it is, it's quite a pronounced heel strike. And what we see also is that you are sort of leaning back a little bit, so there is that kind of lean, and that gives us the indication of the foot striking. So if we just keep watching you run through, and we'll focus for the moment on your right leg because that's the one nearest us. So watch this leg come through, and so right in front of it, and we're here. So what we find is there is where the foot is striking, and you are in front of the body. Ideally, we would want the leg striking more around this area. So you would have more propulsion then to drive yourselves forward. So we'll keep looking through. What we also see, and it's quite hard to see it with those lines on, so we'll just keep going through. There's not a great amount of flexibility in your hip flexors. So we see as the heel comes up, its highest point is really around here. So the hip flexors are fairly tight, which limits the amount that the heel can get up to the bum. So I think that's probably the highest point. We'll just make a note of it. So that's probably in line with the knee. See if it gets any higher than that. A little bit. And then it comes through. So we could do with opening out the hip flexors a little bit. Right, if we let you run back the other way now, we can have a look on your right foot. So here we go. So leg comes through. We've seen that overstride, and you do land relatively, with the leg relatively straight. So here, again, we see quite clearly the legs landing there. So if we draw a line up from there, we're landing quite a long way in front of the centre of gravity, which is here. So essentially what you're doing is you're putting on the brakes quite significantly, and you're also putting a lot of force through that area. Okay, so if we have a little look at the hip flexion as well on that leg, let you run past the lines. Now I actually think your leg comes through a bit lower on this side, but I could be wrong. So here we have that heel strike and slight overstride, leg pushes through, and then slightly better actually on that side. You get more of a using your hip flexors as a lever, so you're bringing your heel through a bit cleaner. But again, you're not really getting a great deal of height on the heel. It's quite a low kind of typical triathletes run style. Okay, so what we want to do now is have a little look from behind and in front. So we get you running away from the camera, and this is where we can really see your feet quite well. Okay, so there is some dipping of the hips as you run. You can't really see with your coat on, but there is a little bit of dip. Okay, so if we watch, so this is your left foot coming through now. So what the left foot does is you're landing on the outside of your foot, if you can see, and you're also landing slightly crossing over. So imagine in swimming a crossover is sort of similar in a running environment. So you land on the outside foot heel there, and then you roll in, and you can see that that foot is slightly turned out, it's slightly pointing out to the left, and then you roll back up through, and then on the other leg, similar. I think you land flatter and more turned out. See there, you can see how much your foot's turning out, and that to me is you trying to avoid putting as much through your toes. So you probably then bend through the smaller toes rather than through the big toe as much. So you're getting that flexion there. So if we just look again. So watch the right foot. The right foot comes in, down, not so much of a roll, and then left foot. It is much more exaggerated in terms of how you're landing. So one of the things that occurs with that is this crossover on both legs though. Oh, we've gone back way too far. Okay, let's have a look. So let's just have a little look at the crossover. So we know that you're coming kind of on the outside of your foot, but it's also the stability of the leg. So they're not truly stable. There's a bit of a collapse in from the glute. Right, let's see if that does. Okay, let's watch it again. So now let's watch your bum, as it were. What we can see is that leg kind of collapses in on itself a little bit. But there's not too much hip dip I wouldn't say, but I think we can really tighten up on those glutes and that kind of stability. So I would say do some balance work and some kind of dynamic hop and stop type work, which will just get you kind of a bit sharper and able to hold that position without collapsing in. So there isn't a lot of rotation in your upper body, so I will send you some shoulder mobility, sort of upper thoracic stuff that you can do. So that whole sort of YWTL stuff, just getting your upper back a little bit more mobile, that will help to sort of loosen out the run form, because you are quite static at the top end. Right, let's see you come back. Right, let's have a look. So here you come, running towards us. So what you can see here is how your knees are quite close together and you do kind of cross over a little bit in front of the body. And what we can do is magnify that a little bit. Let's see what that does. So you can see yourself coming. So you see up here, that leg is kind of coming in a little bit too much towards the centre line. So what I would say for that is the stability sort of hop and stop drills, but also some lunges where we look at kind of thinking of lunging on a railway track rather than lunging and in the knee come in as if you're on a tightrope. So we do some walking lunges and some static lunges. Arm position is not bad. There's not really any crossover. Arms are quite relaxed. As I said, I think we could loosen out the upper spine area, the thoracic spine, and give you a little bit more freedom up there, and that might actually help sort out some of the crossover as well. But I think the main things to consider are doing some piston drills as you start off your run to get the foot wanting to strike under the body, and also doing that I do the drill at the track where you pull the imaginary stick at the back of your heel, so bring that to your bum and down, and also the circular progression from that. So that'll be really good just to do a few of those before you run, focusing on touching the ground under the body. Then I think some glute activation stuff. So I'll put together some exercises for you on your glute activation, and then those stability, balance, and lunges to help with the crossover, and also to ensure that we're not kind of collapsing in. Something that you might want to think about is after every run, stretching out your toes, stretching or massaging out the arches of your feet, and probably doing some calf raises. I think we talked about this before a long time ago in the plan, but that can really help just coming back from a run and doing that kind of as a matter of course. An exercise maybe to open out the hip flexors, so you kind of have a half kneeling lunge where you're basically opening out the hip flexor on that back leg, which will help in terms of the flexibility that you've got to maybe get a little bit more heel lift. But generally I think we just need to kind of loosen you out a little bit, reduce the overstride and tighten up on the stability and the strength, so that you can generate more force through the push off and have stronger glutes. And I think you'll notice a reasonable difference. Okay, thank you very much, Kate. Any questions, please do let me know, and I will send you an accompanying document with some exercises to start you off.